I believe in the power of stories. Ghost stories, bedtime stories, urban legends, local myths, and brand stories. But what is a brand story and what is brand storytelling? Those are words people use a lot. For the sake of this video, we're going to divide them up into two categories. We have brand storytelling, which is an outward thing of telling stories to your audience members. And then there's writing and defining your brand story, which is more of an internal focus, branding infrastructure type thing. Let's start with brand storytelling. Brand storytelling is using the structure and techniques of literary storytelling in everything that you write or say. All of your marketing and branding tactics, including your sales presentations. Effective brand storytelling is just like any other effective storytelling. Just think of the great pieces of literature, movies, plays, the most powerful speeches you've ever seen. They all follow some of these same guidelines and rules. We're talking about a rising action, smaller and larger crises, climax, resolution, introducing static and more importantly dynamic characters, avoiding corporate speak so that we don't sound like a corporate piece of material. We want it to sound like a story. Applying these rules or guidelines in everything we write. Blogs, emails, websites, ads, commercials, videos, sales pitches, press releases, everything we do, we want to borrow from our favorite authors, directors, and speakers. Here are some of those rules or guidelines. Brand stories should engage an audience and inspire action, specifically your desired reaction. This is one thing that's a little different between literary storytelling and brand storytelling. We got to remember, we still have a job to do here. At the end of the day, when someone has read our stories, we have them thinking the way we want them to think and acting the way we want them to act. Brand stories have to provide value. This is what's a little different from your normal marketing writing. Brand storytelling is, and also different from your regular storytelling, literary pieces. We are trying to engage them and make it about them in some way. Effective storytelling has to grab and hold a person's attention. We only have a split second to grab their attention, and they can lose it at any point. We can lose their attention at any point if we don't stay interested. This is one of the reasons, as far as grabbing their attention, I always suggest to speakers to skip the intro. Just jump right in and start your story. Stories not only have to grab and hold their attention, they have to stick with them long after the happily ever after moment. Speaking of happily ever after, stories don't have to start with once upon a time, and they don't need to end with happily ever after. I mean, they can, but they don't really have to be stories per se. They don't have to be the founder's story. They don't have to be something tragic that happened. They don't have to have some great moral lesson at the end. What we're really talking about is just borrowing those techniques. Just ask yourself, what can I borrow from my favorite authors, TED Talks, moth stories, stand-up comedians, movies, plays? You're not just, and the last thing here is you're not just relaying information. You're weaving an engaging, inspiring, and memorable story. A lot of marketing tactics we've all written over our careers have just been jamming in all of the benefits and jamming in all the features. What we want to not just make lists, we want to create an engaging, inspiring, and memorable story. But before you can write even the first one of these many, many stories that you want to tell for your brand, we have to define your brand story. That's a big internal process. That's part of a branding process. That's when we're determining our desired brand position. How do you want the audience members to think and describe you, specifically in the comparison to the alternatives, in comparison to your competition? That's when we're defining our brand essence. What are you all about? What's your reason for existing? We're establishing our brand promises. What does the audience member get in exchange for acting the way we want them to act? When you blank, you will blank. When you buy our product, you'll be amazingly wealthy. Whatever our brand promise is. Articulating our brand proof points. These are our becauses. This is why someone should believe the promise that we just made them. And then we have the last piece of it, which is capturing the brand personality, often referred to as the brand voice. Technically, this isn't part of the brand story, but it's how you tell the brand story, and it's the image that you want to communicate. So I lump it into the same part of the story of developing that brand story. All these things combined your desired brand position, your brand essence, your brand promises, your brand proof points, your brand personality. Combined, they are your brand story. Every brand has a story worth telling. Probably lots of stories worth telling, worth hearing, and worth sharing. And these stories need to be told in every tactic that you're creating. Cumulatively, then all of those little brand storytelling moments will create your brand story. One last thing about brand storytelling. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I want to reiterate it here. Even when you're telling an actual story from your life, don't make the story about you. Because even if the specific story is about you, brand storytelling isn't about you or about your brand. Yes, it needs to be authentic, and you need to write or talk about it in the brand's voice, and you need to include all the benefits of your offering. But effective brand storytelling must be written in the terms of the audience's what needs. What's in it for the reader? It's all about the reader, the viewer, the listener, the audience, the customer, their wants and needs, their dreams and fears, their pain points, their lives, the benefits they need that your brand can deliver. What's your brand story? Let's write it, spread it, and live it. Thanks.